What's up, everyone, and welcome to Talkoffame podcast. And today we are spotlighting Lauren Spangler, who's a painter, musician, and creativity coach, serving clients in the United States and Canada. She's an expert in unblocking creativity and helping artists find balance, inspiration, and fulfillment, along with running a 6-week coaching program helping inspiring artists achieve their creative goals and balance with the rest of their life. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great, Kylie. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, to start things off, if people want to learn more about you and what you do, tell us maybe a little bit more kind of what you do and why you kind of started doing it.
I'm a creativity coach, and what I love to do is help people find balance and joy and excitement in their creative work. And I find that there are a lot of folks who have a really big dream or vision or a thing they'd like to create, and they have they have a challenge starting it or maybe keeping it going or finishing it. And so that's where I step in and sort of walk beside them and help them get through that creative process. Personally, I love to paint. I love to write. I play music. I have owned a creative business for a little while now, and I love this work. It lights me up, and I like to help other people connect with their creative spirit. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
I know with someone who's creative, I'm not as talented as you are, though. I love being creative for some reason, even though I'm not an artist by any means. It's always, everyone's creative in some sort of way. But when did
Absolutely. Yeah, apples and oranges always. Yep.
It's always, but when did, your creativity start? Was it like when you grew up, or did it start when you were younger?
Wow, I've been singing and playing piano and drawing for as long as I can remember, but um, creative, I think all of us are the most creative when we're little in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. I think of curiosity and play as being some of the most important ingredients for creativity. And, any toddler you meet is usually off the charts on curiosity and play. So I think many of us are just naturally really creative when we're young. But when I was a kid, I definitely liked to draw and play the piano more than I liked to do anything else. And then as I grew up, I focused on that and studied it and eventually devoted most of my waking hours to it. So, yeah, it's been something I've been doing for a long time.
I'm honestly was the same way. I love what you said before is that I feel like most child kids are very creative when they're younger. Because of course, they're younger, you need to find something to do. And I realized that every time I was bored, I was doing something creative. And
Yes.
I did it honestly more when I was younger than now, since I had more free time. I was younger than nowadays.
Yeah.
But, with creativity, there's nothing bad about it at all. The more creative you are, the better mind you have. I hear a lot of people say.
Yeah, and a lot of kids don't think of it as being creative. They think of it as like having a good time with some crayons. So it's they have a lot less mental barriers around creativity in general.
Yeah, and plus it puts a lot of people's minds at ease. Like a lot whenever you're maybe drawing or painting something, it's like a big mental tool when you're having a long day. It's honestly a great way to start something off like in the morning before maybe you're going to school or you're going to work, or maybe you're in school like art class. Like that is I know a lot of people's favorite class. And that's something that, I had mixed feelings for when I was in middle school, but don't have any harsh feelings about our class, but with drawing being creative, it honestly is such a huge way to really express yourself in different ways. Sometimes art can be the only way you can express yourself rather than actually talking to people about your feelings.
Absolutely. It can be a tremendous vehicle for expression and connection. And I agree with you completely, Kylie. It can be self-care too, for
It
sure.
really could. But you talk a lot about building a healthy relationship with creativity. How exactly do we do that? Is my question. Because it can be so hard for some people to do that.
Absolutely. I think of creativity. If creativity is important to you, then just like anything important to you, it deserves some attention, and the quality of that attention matters. And when I work with artists who are really serious about bringing their art into the world in a meaningful way, one thing we talk about is how can we develop a strong and healthy relationship with our own creativity. Because it's really
Mhm.
common for artists to sort of slip into dysfunctional relationships with their creativity where they are expecting a lot out of the relationship, but they're not putting a lot into the relationship, or they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves, or, think of it like any friendship or partnership that you've ever had. There are certain ways that you're going to spend time there. There's an amount of fun you're going to bring into it. You're going to speak about that relationship in a certain way and think about that relationship in a certain way. And so we apply a lot of those similar relationship building techniques when we're talking about creativity. And we look at the balance of what you're putting in and what you're expecting out. And it can be a pretty powerful way to boost your creativity and then just boost your overall experience when you're engaging with yourself in an artistic way.
It really is like that because sometimes a lot of people rely on art, but with art, it's kind of similar to actually human relationships. Is that like sometimes when you have maybe a creative burnout, it is really the same thing as actual burnout, but in a workspace. And so when you are experiencing maybe that creativity outburst where you can't find anything, that's something that I have a question for you in a bit later in this episode. But with that burnout and trying to struggle to get to that point, it is very important to have that positive thing to really find that creative accessibility in those human relationships, even though human and artistic minds are very similar in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes we overcomplicate things. We can overthink things and we can make it a lot harder than it is. When we're facing a block or burnout, it can be easy to go through this sort of overthinking spiral and we start to make it a lot harder than it needs to be. So if we pare that back and make it a bit simpler, find an easy step we can take to make that relationship a little stronger and to start relating to ourselves in a different, maybe healthier, more productive way, it can be a good place to start.
You're so right. And so with creative burnout, it can be such a big thing for individuals that are very creative and always working to find ways to be more creative and be better at their talent. But in your perspective, in your experience, like how do you deal with creative burnout?
A lot of times burnout is less about the creative process and more about the process of judging our work and putting it into the market or putting it into, like, usually the thing that's burning people out isn't the work itself.
Hmm.
It's sort of the judgments and thoughts that they're having about the work. So um, it can be deeply personal and it varies from person to person. For me personally, when I went through some pretty extensive, like 7 year long creative burnout, it was because I had just sort of gotten upside down in the role that art was playing in my life. And I had started to wrap a lot of, self value and a lot of personal worthiness around how people were receiving my art. And so then when I started trying to make art, I wasn't really soaking in the joy of making art. I wasn't having fun in the process of making art. I was sort of already in that place of the fear of rejection, the fear of criticism, the fear of, what if nobody likes this? What if this is bad? What if it doesn't meet the bar? And all of those sort of really fearful, um, natural but not helpful thoughts started bleeding into the creative experience, so that when I was making a painting or writing a song, instead of enjoying painting or enjoying making music, the whole time I was sort of assessing, like, is this going to be good enough? Is it going to measure up? Is it going to be, whatever? And that's a really hard place from which to feel inspired or to feel enjoyment. And so for me, each time I sat down to create, it was sort of this anxiety loop instead of being fun and enjoyable. And so, no surprise, I stopped sitting down to create because all the fun sort of drained out of it. So when we're trying to fix burnout, you figure out what is the antidote, what's the medicine for the ailment. And so for me, because a lot of mine had to do with the criticism and judgment of how my work would be received, the medicine then was just like removing all of that pressure and just not allowing that into my headspace when I sat to create, and intentionally making things that I was going to share with no one, that were just for me, that I was just going to enjoy, and finding ways to bring that enjoyment and that mindfulness and presence back into my creative experience, um, you know, was really important, because then when I started to feel that spark of enjoyment again and cultivated that and supported that, and got that really, really strong before I allowed anybody else back into that. For me, that's what got me out of the burnout and into a healthier place again.
I love that you were able to really bring yourself out of that, even if it took forever to do that. Because of course, when you are doing it as much as possible, maybe every single day, it can be exhausting and be like, why am I doing this every single day? It can cause so much burnout. And when you're doing it so often, you're just like, when was the last time I actually had a break and actually had a good night's sleep without worrying that is someone going to enjoy this? Is someone going to enjoy what I'm doing? Am I actually enjoying it now as much as I used to? And asking yourself
Yeah, that,
questions that like
yeah,
you like just think about for a few days, like, is it really meant for me in a way? And should I post this or should I sell this? And so I have experience personally with that so much that I literally never sat down and actually thought, like, is it important to me or am I just doing it to keep myself busy? Or is it actually
yeah,
worth my time in doing it and actually getting a break for once, you know? So it's like when you're experiencing some burnout, which I experience burnout, more than I should, honestly. And so when you are burning, like when you're burnt out and you're exhausted from maybe you're working a lot or you're having to balance so many things, it means that you probably need to dismiss something and actually think like, okay, is each thing that I'm dealing with right now actually should I spend so much time on this? So it's like
yeah,
whenever you're being creative, it's just a matter of do I actually get so much anxiety in doing this? And is it really worth it to me and worth all the stress doing this and anything else?
yeah. And we sometimes over focus on, is anybody else going to like this? And we're not asking ourselves, am I liking this? Like, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Yeah. Or we're trying to pour from an empty cup. And it's like, if we haven't done the basic self-care stuff, if we haven't allowed ourselves some enriching, inspiring experiences and taken ourselves out for a walk and like gone and done fun, enriching things, and then we're feeling low on inspiration, we can't be too surprised about that either. So like, before you're trying to output, think about what you need and what sort of makes you feel like inspired and excited and like you're ready to go put something out before you sit down and ask yourself to do so.
I know,
Yeah.
because like I know sometimes a lot of people feel so surprised when they're burnt out. Like why people be like, why am I so burnt out? Like I barely did anything. All I did was create. But when you're create, like you're using your brain more than you actually know because it's your mind creating all those ideas that you're just writing it down on paper. And sometimes when you're creating things, it can put your brain to work to the point where you're just exhausted. It can being a creative individual. So it can be so exhausting for some people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with having that so many ideas, it can be very stress related and it really could bring so many ideas and frustrating to the point where you just like it really brings yourself to realize like, okay, like how much creative ideas can I take at once,
Yep.
But like, of course, you have kids, and I read, did your kids get a creativity after they're born? Like, did it kind of help you?
Yeah. So I have two little boys. One is 5 and one is 3. And uh, when my younger son was born, I wasn't making a lot of work at that time. I wasn't super consistent with what I was doing. I had a toddler running around the house. I had a job. I had laundry and dishes and all the things that keep moms and dads really busy. And when my youngest was born, I had this surge of creative energy, like unexpectedly. I sort of just started wanting to paint all the time. And I had all these ideas for pictures that I wanted to make. I had all these ideas for um, songs I wanted to write. And just, it was surprising. And I don't know exactly still what caused that, other than there was so much happening that I wanted to capture. And it was all happening so quickly. Like my little boy would grow over the course of a week. He would look different and he would be doing different things. I would realize, oh my gosh, those tiny little feet are not so tiny anymore. And I want to bottle this all up. And making paintings about that time that sort of captured that essence for me was one way that I bottled it up, to keep like in a jar so that I could remember what those tiny, tender little moments were like. And I would say, having my kids around, watching the way that my toddler would create and just the freedom and fearlessness and joy that he would bring to drawing something was definitely inspiring. And then this like surge of creative energy and how it sort of helped me process a lot of stuff that was going on at that time was pretty special. So yeah, that was sort of when a lot of creative work picked up again in my life and sort of set a new pace for how much I was making and sort of how much I was devoting to it.
That's so awesome. Like I know with the having maybe kids or niece or nephew or just seeing like your family members, running around with kids, it really can bring some sort of inspiration and watching them grow up. Because every time you see them, you're like, how much did you grow in a day? Like how
Yeah.
it's gone. And so like when they're very young, it's like you because of course they're not gonna be young forever and you wanna always capture those moments. And I have a niece and nephew. One is 3, one is a couple months old. And so as a
Congratulations.
and I always, every time I see them, I'm like, how much did I miss? When was the last time I actually came over? Like,
Yeah.
well, like, it's really, as a person, you're just like, one was like, sometimes you have to capture those moments and having, those times with family. Because you, like, of course, you want to maybe do a painting or take a photograph or something. Because as a creative individual, you want to be able to remember those moments with your kids or nieces, nephews, or family members because they're not always gonna be there, It's not the memories are not always gonna last in that moment. So really, as someone who's very creative, those are really the moments you love to savor most when they're younger.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just one natural way for me to sort of try to express that and collect that for myself, for sure.
And that is honestly such a good way. I honestly wish I've done that years ago for some reason. I don't
There's
know why.
always time. There's always time, Kylie.
Yeah, there always is. It's never you're never too old to do anything. So there's
No,
never a
ma'am.
time to try it. But how is our creativity impacted by the fast pace of modern life and social media? Because of course, social media and life we live can take over anything during the days we live.
Yeah. I think the experience of being an artist now is probably very different than maybe it ever has been because I think artists feel a tremendous amount of pressure to be sharing their work at a really rapid pace. Like, if you're taking the strategy of trying to feed the algorithm, what will algorithmically help boost your success on some of these platforms? You're expected to share work in a kind of a rapid fire way, like daily, multiple times a day. And there's this pressure and this assumption we need to be sharing new work, which means we need to be creating it at this breakneck pace. And all of that pressure is really puts a strain on our creativity and on the way we think of ourselves as artists and on the way we gauge our success, like how we're doing, right? And so there are a lot of things I love about social media. I
Mhm.
love connecting with other artists and tapping into creative communities that I would never be able to access if it was just me hanging out in New Mexico. Instead of being isolated in my hometown here, I can connect with people all over the world, which is great. And I love that. I love connecting with collectors. I love sharing my process. I love all those things. And the caveat is, I think we have to really guard our creative energy and not allow the pace of connection on social media to push us into an unhealthy state around like expecting ourselves to suddenly become an art factory, just like pumping out great stuff that's super shareable every day. Because really, if you're an artist, you know that not everything you make is good. And if
Mhm.
every single thing you make is perfect, you're not pushing yourself enough. You're not experimenting enough and trying hard enough. And so a healthy artist often makes pieces that they don't want to share, that didn't turn out the way they wanted to because they're building a new skill or experimenting with a new approach. Um, so I think, my tip is to sort of compartmentalize that and be conscious about the mindsets that you need when you are in a creative space and when you're making your art and playing and experimenting and giving that space and time and protecting that consciously. And then cultivating different mindsets and sort of like wearing a different hat when you're thinking about how to share your work and how to connect with people on social media. And thinking about how to market and promote and operationalize all of that is a totally different skill set. It's a totally different headspace. And just recognizing that they're separate things can be helpful.
You really could, because of course, as an artist, you're not going to love everything you do. Like, if you do, then maybe you're not pushing yourself harder than
Yeah.
you originally are. But you can't like every painting you make or everything you create. Like, as I look back on these episodes I did, I honestly sometimes wanted to delete them, is how bad it was. Not the
I get that.
gas. I don't
Yeah.
mind the gas. It doesn't, it's nothing
Yeah.
against the gas, but it's just like I just can't help but hate the way I did, how I approached it. And that's the way most people approach, is that like not everyone's gonna love their work. Not everyone's gonna love a certain thing they do, and that's okay. Not everyone's gonna like what they do. Everyone's gonna judge themselves. I judge myself all the time, and I don't mind that at all. It's something that I love to do. But judging yourself is not a bad thing. It's even if you don't judge
Yeah.
yourself, there's always, not you're not gonna love everything you do. Like even if you don't want
Yeah.
to judge yourself, there's someone to judge yourself for you. It's not everyone's
Yeah.
gonna like your
There's a
paint.
healthy piece. There's a healthy piece to that of self awareness. Looking back at a podcast episode that you hosted a while ago and being able to take a healthy critical eye to that and say, okay, that's interesting. I noticed myself doing this pattern over and over. I noticed myself having this instinct or whatever. And I'd rather do that differently next time. That's learning. That's improving. That's
Mhm.
just being honest and going, okay, I could up my game. I've been there too. Absolutely. When I started doing podcasts, I tripped all over my words. I told stories in a really weird way. And I look back at those and go, oh man, that's on the internet forever. Awesome.
I know
Great.
that's the
Wish I
worst
could.
part about it, is that
I,
everywhere and
yeah,
you
it's
can find it.
immemorialized. But here's the thing, you wouldn't be doing podcasts the way you are now if you hadn't started somewhere, right? It's one of the stepping stones. And so instead of beating ourselves up when we take that look back, we can learn from, we can understand how to do better, maybe if we want to kind of up our game or raise the bar for ourselves. And then we can just have compassion and go, yeah, Lauren of 6 months ago, she had no idea how to be on podcasts, or Kylie was still learning how to be a host, whatever. And just have compassion to that past version of ourselves and extend a little bit of grace. And then just keep trying, right? Keep improving, grow and improve. That's my motto.
You're so correct. Like everything is a learning experience. Like everything that you try, whether it's starting a podcast or going on different podcasts or trying something new, everything is worth a try. Like no matter if you don't like it or you love it, everything's worth it because you have no idea if you're gonna like it, even though you think it's horrible. And basically, when you start everything, like whether you're trying, it's probably gonna be horrible anyway. It's probably
Yeah,
not gonna be the best thing ever. And that's okay. At least you're trying. As long as you get past and doing it all the time, things become better for you. Not everyone's a pro at everything. No one knows it all. So it's always worth the
that's right.
process and at least trying at something.
That's right. Because, we never fail. We succeed or we learn.
Right.
And so there's always a win to be
For
had.
sure. And to kind of wrap things up, like tell us, more about your 6 week coaching program. I definitely would love to learn more about that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited about it. I've been working with private clients for a long time, and I've been walking beside people when they go through this transformation from feeling like blocked and like there are all these projects they want to work on, but they don't know how it fits in their life and they don't know whether to call themselves an artist, and they're just not stepping into that identity that they know is there for them, and helping take them into a place where they're feeling confident and fulfilled. They're making the work that matters. They're sharing it in a way that feels good. I love seeing people go through that change and bring their inner artist forward. That's really, really gratifying to me. And so I have been playing around for a while with how to compress that timeline for people so that instead of that transformation taking a year, could I help someone do that in 6 months? Could I help someone do that in 3 months? Could I help someone do that in 6 weeks? And so I've now created a framework that does walk someone through that transformation in 6 weeks. And I'm really excited. We're bringing students into the program. We're seeing exciting results and changes for them already. And yeah, I'm just thrilled.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Like to have, a coaching thing is always very fun to help teach other people some things because, of course, mentorship and learning from other people is very important. That experience in your field, but that's something not a lot of people need is mentorship and learning about some things, whether it's, painting or, different, very different things. And they don't have, maybe sometimes people don't have access to that. So to be able to access something for a couple of weeks, no matter the program, is always very rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I hope it helps people. It's exciting to see the impact it's already having with some people. And yeah, we don't, I'm not providing you know, specific lessons in any particular creative art.
Mhm.
So we have people from across the board. I have painters, musicians, I have writers, novelists. So this framework really applies. It's about improving the relationship with creativity, and that's applicable for people in all sorts of different fields, no matter what art you actually practice. So that's another fun part too, is I get to meet all these different artists who practice all these different crafts, and getting to learn about all that has been a blast.
Honestly, I wish I had something like that when I was growing up. Like as I started this, because of course, when you're connecting with people, not just a specific thing that they're interested in, but you're offering a wide range of different things. So it's great to offer multiple things that people like to do and to learn more about that. Because not everyone knows everything. So to learn from
That's
someone
right.
like you that knows all this stuff about painting, music, and stuff is very something that I know I probably needed when I started doing podcasting and stuff is learn more about that is very, something that a lot of people could use for sure.
Well, I sure hope so. I hope it helps people.
I'm sure it does. But thank you everyone for listening. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Make sure to subscribe, rate, like whatever's on your platform. Every platform is different, of course. But I really appreciate you, Lauren, for joining us today. Thank you, Chris, for connecting us and referring. It's always I really appreciate it. It means so much. But thank you so much, Lauren, for joining us. And I absolutely love having you on. And thank you for coming on again time.
Thank you so much for having me, Kylie. This has been a blast.